Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, my beautiful friend. Welcome back to the podcast. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy. I'm just so happy. I just stepped off of a gorgeous week on a gorgeous cruise ship in the gorgeous Caribbean. I mean, there really is no option but to be happy. I feel rested. I feel recharged. I feel really excited about all that's coming. And I have to tell you, the wackiest thing in the midst of all of this rest, like literally, I laid by the pool every single day on this cruise, and I had the most financial income from my business week. What do you call that? Highest grossing week? See, it's never happened. I don't even know the words for it. I had the highest grossing week of my entire career, of my entire business this week. And you know, my mantra for 2025 is let it be easy. Guess what? It totally works. Now, I will say, I've done the reps, right? I didn't just decide to start a business yesterday and then go on a cruise today and lay by the pool sipping champagne, and then all of this business came in. I've done the work, but I've also lined up with the woman I am becoming, with the desires I have, with the dreams I have, with the ways I'm saying yes to myself. And I'm not giving all of my attention to what is in this moment. I'm giving all of my focus and my attention to where we are going. And let me tell you, we're going places. This is so fun. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I hope your week was as fabulous as mine. And if so, I want to hear about it. And if not, I want to hear about that. Like, let's see what we can do together to get you to a place that has you feeling like your skin is too small for how much excitement is running through your body. One of those opportunities, of course, is listening to this podcast. Another opportunity is to have an experience that is this podcast turned up to level 10, which is our Say Yes Summit. And our next one is next week, April 15th and 16th. So I bring together 8 podcast guests over 2 days. It's on Zoom, so you can join in anywhere. And even if the timing doesn't work out in the day, you get the replay for that. But if you are available to be there live on these calls, you get to be in the energy of these gorgeous, expansive conversations that you enjoy listening to when you're out on your walk or folding your laundry or in the school pickup line, whatever it is that you're filling your days with. But you get to interact with these women that are bringing these beautiful, amazing messages. And the theme for this Say Yes Summit is permission. It's so good. I can hardly wait. So we've got an amazing lineup. We have Adriana Schumann and Moe Carrick. We have Alex Sabag and Elizabeth Martharara. We have Valerie McKeon and Nicole Kramer. We have Claudine McDaniel and Elizabeth Tagaw Gus. And you are going to love how they are saying yes to themselves, how they have given themselves permission to thrive, to pivot, to grow, to say yes, to say no, to do all sorts of fabulous things. And we're welcoming, inviting you into signing your own permission slip as well. So the link is down in the show notes. Again, it's April 15th and 16th, 2 days, 8 speakers, plus the replays. It's all good. It's $47. And if you decide that you want to join the Say Yes Sisterhood, our monthly membership, you can use your summit dollars towards your first month of the membership. And I got to tell you, amazing things are happening in there as well. We've just invited 2 new queens to join us, and that's super fun. And we have a private Paris retreat coming up for members only this September. So I'm happy to give you all of those details as well. You can, again, click the link in the show notes. You can always DM me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse. I'm here for it. And I just love this opportunity that we get to feel this connected, because I feel this connected to you too. And this is real, and it's good, and it's beautiful, and there's more. Hooray! Okay, so one of our fabulous speakers at the Say Yes Summit is also today's guest. We have the amazing Moe Carrick. She is a consultant, a coach, a speaker, a best-selling author, a work futurist who helps senior leaders transform struggling teams, scale healthy culture, build connectedness, and ensure results. She is the founder of Momentum Incorporated, where she helps CEOs, business owners, and senior leaders build unstoppable teams without creating a soul-sucking workplace. I am so delighted to bring you this phenomenal conversation with Moe Carrick. Moe, I am so delighted to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for having me. I'm just delighted to be here. Even our pre-conversation was fun.
It's all so fun. We are up to great things in the world. We care about what we're doing. We are in the practice of practicing presence, and we're attracting amazing opportunities, including people, into our lives and our daily experiences. What is not to love?
Right? It's true. It's true.
It's so good. And it's happening for everybody. It's happening for us.
Mm,
It's happening for our listeners. It's, the things that we focus on, that's what grows, and we get what we're looking for. And these are the kinds of conversations that I am looking for. So these are the kinds of conversations that I am having.
good job.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Love
So,
it.
how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
So I love that question. And I knew about it ahead of time before talking to you on the podcast, right? And I was like, how am I? How am I? Like, what does that look like? And I think there's a couple of different things that show up for me. So I'm 62. And I've had my business for 20, coming up on 24 years. Prior to that, I worked inside other companies. I'm the mother of 3 plus a stepson. I'm not really yearning for retirement, although I can understand the concept of it, but it's not really my stage. I think one of the things that I'm aware I'm saying yes to is really claiming my chops, like my wisdom, my authority, my experience. And I'm energized by that because it's coming from a different place in the work that I do with clients than it was when it was mostly just to support, not just, but like to support my family as a single mom for some of my years. And even when I was married and then remarried, My income has often been primary. So I've had to, the money side of my work has mattered quite a bit. And I think now it still matters. I mean, definitely still matters in terms of legacy that I want to leave behind, but I'm more saying yes to myself around what's my point of view
Mm,
in the work that I do, which is all about making workplaces that are fit for human life, and trying to just stay very grounded in that without having to prove, without having to perfect, but rather just staying in that voice. I think that's one thing. Another thing is trying to really focus on what is it that I do that takes exquisite care of me.
mm,
Because as women, I think especially, but I think men too, we all struggle with like, what are the conditions in which we thrive? you
right.
know and an example for me comes up even this morning. I told you I was recording this podcast in Mexico, and I woke up and I had about 40 minutes before we spoke, and I was like, well, I could go up and do some work. I need to do some work, but also it's so cool and beautiful. I think I'll go out for a run. And I know that moving my body and working out is one thing that, feels really good to me, to be outside in the air. And I've gotten over kind of like training for things. I used to be an endurance athlete, an adventure athlete. And so in like past me might have been like, no, a 30-minute run is not significant enough.
Mm,
You have to do a 90-minute, pacing run or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not actually it. So for me, that's part of saying yes. Um, what else am I doing to say yes to myself? Oh, here's one that I've been thinking a lot about. I'm an introvert. So my work is very affiliative.
yes.
So I look like an extrovert. And one of the things that I've really been saying yes to for myself is to just indulge in the ways in which I know that I get energy. And so that includes
Mm,
things like I have a horse. I ride my quarter horse out in the desert by myself most of the time. I ride with friends too, but I also ride by myself. I read books by myself. I give myself permission to say I'm going to sit in the living room and not do anything on a Saturday for 2 hours and read some delicious fiction. And I think, as a young working mother, for many years, those kinds of ways of saying yes to me were just not even fathomable.
right.
So, yeah, there's lots of ways I'm saying yes to me in this wise old age.
Oh, it's all so beautiful, Mo. I love
Mm,
everything. I'm taking notes. Your gorgeous word choice of taking exquisite care of yourself. That's so beautiful. I am at the time of this recording, which I know it'll be many weeks before it falls on your ear, sweet listener, but I am in the mode of selecting my word for 2025.
mm,
And it just has me more mindful of words that I hear in passing, whether I'm reading or listening to a podcast or having a beautiful conversation like this, of what are the words that feel like they are literally popping off the page and
mm,
connecting to my heart. And that word exquisite, especially associated with care, that it wasn't about something that you're producing that is outward facing, that is going
mm,
to, put you over your revenue goals or get you land that great job or that next TED talk or whatever,
mm, mhm,
which are beautiful. And there's definitely a time for that. And the other word that you used was indulge. And it was again associated with something you were doing for yourself. And
mm,
I really appreciate that so much because I am a single mother. I am running a historic bed and breakfast on a small flower farm. All of those things require all of my time and attention individually. So collectively, they require 3 days worth of time and attention every one day.
right,
And that's not the only thing that I do. Like we also have to eat and we have
right.
to like blow
Do our
dry my
laundry.
hair, which takes so long. And
Totally.
right. So I really appreciate and receive the reminder, because my whole brand is saying yes to yourself. And if I'm not doing that, or if I am focusing on all of the tasks that are associated with communicating this brand and growing this brand, and I'm just saying brand not like it's apart from me, but
Yeah.
I'm building an empire here, because that's the kind of impact and contribution that I'm available for and that I desire. And it's no joke. And the only
Yeah.
way that I'm going to do that effectively and quote unquote on brand is if I am taking intentional, exquisite care of myself and indulging myself in what fills me up and my tank. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you that your
Yeah.
yeses were like a giant yes to me. I feel like I just went to church. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking about, I'm like, how did I land on that word? I know how I landed on the word indulge, but I'm remembering that the use of exquisite, taking exquisite care of yourself, I actually learned from someone else. It's Susan Hyatt. Do you know Susan Hyatt?
I don't.
She wrote a really groundbreaking book called Bare, Bare, Bare. She's a passionate advocate for ditching diet culture.
Mm.
She's a life coach and has whole bunch of things, but she also has run for many years. She's run a program in the summer called the Summer of Yes. You two actually really need to talk to each other.
You are right.
Yeah, and I've used her as a coach at various times, and she's the one who I think I learned that term from. Of like, she asked me one time on a coaching call, like, what would exquisite care for you look like? And I remember being like, oh, I don't know. Like I really don't know. I really don't know.
Right.
And it feels really good to know what that looks like, doesn't it? Like that's
Yes.
just real, it's really powerful. And I think it can take us some time to figure that out.
Right. I mean, sometimes those answers fly right to our head because
Right.
someone asked the question and everything inside of us has been screaming, go to Paris. So that when someone
Right.
asks that question, it just falls out of your mouth as if you're also hearing it for the first time.
Right.
But also, that's a practice. And we are allowed to practice to find the answers to
Yeah,
these questions. I'm just thinking of
totally.
in parenting, I have a 10-year-old and she's interesting, sweet, lovey, amazing unicorn that she is. She is also an introvert, which
Mm,
I have a grasp of the English language. So I understand what that is, but that's about the extent of my understanding of what that feels like, because that's not my
mm,
experience. And in addition to being introverted, she enjoys mastering anything that she's doing, but she enjoys that feeling of mastery before she tries it for the first time.
oh,
So that's a pretty tall order to master something you've never done before. And so I'm continually encouraging her and communicating that the only way that we can master something is by practicing it.
well, and it sounds like she's got already, which is, it breaks my heart a little bit, but I also get it and I relate to it. She's already got some of that perfectionistic drive, inside of her, which I think is something that is so prevalent in our society. And it's so
Yeah,
connected to how we don't say yes or how we don't be brave in what we're meant to, because we think that there's a way that it's done. We tell ourselves the story that if we get it just right, that it will all work out, but
right.
there isn't a guarantee. So good job. I mean, she's lucky to have you as her mama be helping her be braver, as she tries those things and develops mastery, which she surely will, you
Right.
know. Good job.
Oh, thank you. It's just, you wonder like what is nature and over nurture and all of these things, because although I have great attention to detail, I certainly desire things to be a certain way. My personality doesn't necessarily expect somebody else to make it that way for me. I I have high standards of myself and low standards of others in the sense that I don't expect them to read my mind. I mean, that's that's what it looks like on my side of the street. I don't know if the people that live here think that the same way.
Right.
But as I say that, I'm like, is that true? Is that everyone's experience? But I think it's really interesting that she has those feelings, and I think a lot of it is associated with I'm reading this book by Elaine Ahrens called The Highly Sensitive Child, and she wrote a book called The Highly Sensitive Person, and it's just a different way of taking in information. It's more like a satellite dish. So her desire to master something has, I'm sure, perfectionism in there, but there's also this whole grid of taking in the energy of all the people and experiences around you and really wanting to nail it because it every single thing just feels really big because of the way she takes in information.
Yeah, I get that. It's interesting. I think I've come to believe all three of my children are adults now. My youngest is 24, but I've been thinking a lot about I one of my children, I believe, probably would have been labeled a highly sensitive child when he was young. He's now in his early 30s. I don't know about the other two, but I've come to see that I think they were as well. And part of me is like, aren't we all as children
Right.
highly sensitive? Like we don't have the self-protection that we can develop as adults. And there's something so beautiful about that.
Oh my gosh,
It's
yes.
so beautiful. And it's also so terrifying in navigating what we have to deal with in the world.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting that you named that word. It's something I'm thinking a lot about and talking a lot about, ironically, especially when it comes to men and the
Ooh,
masculine.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that because I want to hear where you're going with that, and
Yeah.
I want to also ask like how you're seeing this dynamic in the workplace.
Yeah.
Like you've been doing the work that you do for such a long time,
Yeah.
yet it's not something that you ever arrive at or get mastery of because there are moving parts and there are people. So there's
Right. They're
right?
people.
So
Yes,
there's
they're
like
messy and imperfect, right?
yes,
By their very nature. Yeah.
and varied and
Yeah.
across a whole array of different sectors and industries and personalities, and then how people are affected after a global pandemic. I mean, oh my gosh.
Right.
God
Right.
bless you. Please take exquisite care of yourself and indulge in all the things that fill your tank.
For all of us, right? For all of us.
Right.
No, it's true. It's so true. And so here's what, so you asked, and so I will share with
Yeah.
you like a little glimpse in terms of what's top of mind for me. So let me give those very short stories. So as a consultant and coach, I would say the vast majority of my clients historically have been men. That's partly because my target audience is often in the C-suite of small to medium-sized businesses, often privately held, although I've certainly worked with some of the big names, the Nikes, the Amazons, but I wouldn't say they're my sweet spot. Work a lot also in healthcare and education. But I still have worked with lots of men. And I'm also the mother of two men and a woman. And I have one of my sons is, well, all of my kids, I would say, are in recovery from various different mental health and addictive disorders. And we've been on a steep learning curve. And
Mm.
also, I have been very interested in noticing how men and women at work are impacted by the messaging that they get about, in particular, emotion as a source
Mm.
of data. Because many of the men that I've coached, their learning edge or the challenge that they're having as people leaders is that they aren't very good at connection
Mm.
or empathy, right? And what I've seen with many women I've coached, especially senior leaders, is that in many cases women have assimilated into the what they perceive as the insider culture, which is often white and male, to the point where they've lost their own authentic sense of how they best could show up. So this got me really interested over the years of like researching how does emotional intelligence play out for us around gender dynamic, looking at the work of researchers like Deborah Tannen, Jennifer Bosom. Jennifer Bosom actually says it really well. She says she's a University of Florida researcher, and she talks about how men are given a much more narrow band of emotional expression than women. And she described it as like being a knife ridge where if they stay
Mm.
in one lane, everything
Yeah.
works out. But if they fall off on either side, they fall. And it's mostly around the emotion that they're given permission to express the most from the time they're little boys is that of anger,
Yeah.
which is the one emotion women are given very little room to express, right?
Mhm.
So this creates some real stuckness when it comes to how we partner and how we lead. And so in 2019, right before the pandemic, I was invited to give a TED talk. It was my third talk, but it wasn't on one of my books. It was just a talk from my heart. And it's called Loving Men, Women's Role in Healthy Masculinity, because I really wanted
Mm.
to unpack like what's my lane of that as a wife, as a mother, as a sister, daughter, etc. What is that? And since then, it's been there. It's been very present in my family. It's been very much something that I think about, but haven't really focused on it. But the reason it's servicing today is that when was it? Friday, I guess it was. Friday of this week, I had a post go viral on LinkedIn, which has never really happened to me. Like I don't, and it's a vanity metric. Like it doesn't matter really in terms of business, but it was powerful for me in terms of the taproot of what I think is happening in
Sure.
society, which is that men are in trouble, like in terms of opioid addiction rates,
Mm.
suicide rates, perpetrators and victims of gun violence. We're seeing a lot of issues with men in our society right now. We know we have a global loneliness epidemic, which also disproportionately is impacting men and boys. Suicide rates for boys are 5 times that of girls. So like we have a problem. And what I was writing about in this post was about that and about how that I think is creating some of the conditions that we're seeing at a global level around a rise in authoritarianism and just some challenges. And so for me, my lens, like my petri dish is work. I'm
Right.
not a politician. And I believe that when we're thriving at work, it's good for us as individuals. It's good for our family. It's good for our community. It's good for our state, our nation, and the world. Like that's kind of how I think about making an impact. So I think my next book is going to have to be about emotional intelligence through the gender lens, because I
Mm.
think there's so much there around how we show up on that spectrum of gender identity. Yeah, so it's very up for me
Yeah.
around how can we debunk literally centuries
Yeah.
of socialization around a gender binary, around emotional intelligence, connection, human connection, and begin to become much more fluent, savvy, and skilled at seeing the criticality of intimate emotional connection. And I mean that even at work for
Right.
men and women, all women, not just cis or hetero women like me or cis or hetero men, but like across all,
Right.
to be functioning better. And there's just so much there. There's so much there.
Oh my goodness. That's big work.
What do you think of all that?
Oh, I think you're amazing. I'm glad I got you on this side of the book. That is, wow. It's really beautiful work. It's really
Hmm.
impactful. It's very important. It it's one of those missions that you will definitely not see the full fruition of
Yeah,
your work just
right.
unless you're going to live for another 200 years,
Unlikely.
but right. But it is so worth the effort.
I think so too. I feel like we are at a pitch point right now, and I think we're
Yes.
seeing this convergence in the post-pandemic reality where we have, in general, a big rise in anxiety, a rise in isolation. My husband and I were noticing on our way down here to Mexico, there was a couple in line in front of us, and the guy, they were probably about our age, maybe a little older. You could see by the way he was acting that he just wanted to connect.
Mm.
And I'm sure you've seen this, Wendy. We're all on our phones right now in public places, right? So this is at our home airport, we're getting ready to go away, and we're looking around, and everybody's on their phones, including us. And this guy is looking around, looking, and so we both put our phones away. My husband, who's an extrovert, turned to him.
It's like, I got this one.
Right, totally. Looked him in the eye. Where are you headed? And it unfolded this long conversation about where they were headed. And later, like we didn't talk about it in the moment, but later on in our journey, my husband said that guy was just wanting a human connection. That's all he wanted. And I thought, yeah, and you gave it to him. Like you probably set up a better day for that human. And yet it was a conscious act of
Right.
putting away his phone and turning and talking. And I just think we there's a lot that we've lost in recent years about this, that it must be relearned. I'm very, very anxious, for our children, for our
Mhm.
children's children, around their capacity to really connect. And so I'm in, like, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And so I'm like, yep. And I'm a total feminist, right? And somebody actually called me out on social. They're like, how can you say that we as women have a role in helping men heal or whatever? And I'm like, because women are also being harmed. And I said, I am still a feminist, but
Right.
I don't think feminism is what's caused men to be suffering. But I think I have a role, just like, for me, just like white people have a role in eliminating racism.
Yes.
Women have a role in eliminating the pain that men are experiencing, which, by the way, also reduces sexism. you know
Right.
so I expect some heat from my own people.
Bring it. I love that you already have the response,
Mm,
because it's true. And the reason that you want to do the work is because, well, we can see the problem and we can see the solution, and we can also recognize our role in that
right,
because we're women. We do that all the time about everything. We do
right,
that when we open the pantry and
yeah,
we're going to figure out what's for dinner. We have the problem, we have the solution, we have the resources, and we make it happen, and we care for everybody, including ourselves, in the process. That
yes.
is why you're doing it. That's why a feminist should be doing
Mm,
that work,
oh,
because
thank you.
it's the end goal is for everyone to
Yeah,
rise,
that's right.
which I feel in in, in my feminist hat that I put
Yeah.
on. It's not because I want to step on some man to get to the top. It's because rising tides raise all ships. And I'm
Yes,
done. You just need to get your foot off of me, because when
right.
I rise, you get to come with me. So step
Absolutely. I
off,
love
dude.
that.
Like, come on.
Yeah,
I have good
exactly.
ideas, and they are for the expansion of the whole, and nobody's getting left out of this equation.
Yeah, that's right. Wherever we go together.
Yes.
Wherever we go together. And yeah, it's critical. And it is sensitive because it's intractable. I've been reading this beautiful novel by Kristen Hanna, who I like her work. She wrote a beautiful book about the Dust Bowl. This one's about
Mm.
women serving in Vietnam.
Oh,
And
wow.
I haven't read much about Vietnam. I really haven't. I mean, I knew my uncle served. But
Mhm.
I'm struck with, in reading this book, I'm struck with the epigenetic load of
Mm.
what men carry around military service, again, for centuries, for millennia, really, and what that must be like. It's an experience that's different than me. Now, this book is about also the role of women who served too, which I don't know anything about, but I think it's
Right.
just really very powerful. So there's a lot there, and I feel called. And it's also at the same time, while it feels like something new, it's not, in terms of my role as a coach in business and as a mom. It feels like extremely familiar.
You've been preparing for this next yes for 62
Mm,
years.
Right.
right? Like
Yes.
you're
Yes.
so, it's a
Mm,
new project, but you are not new.
right. That's for darn sure.
Right? You are the woman for the role. You said that in your yes
Mhm.
also when
Mm,
I originally asked you the question, you were owning your chops. Like
yeah.
you have a seat at the table. You earned your seat at the table. You take your seat at the table. And you belong there and you're supposed to be there because you're not just taking up a seat, you're using your voice. You're
Yeah.
contributing to the conversation.
I'm definitely trying. I'm definitely trying.
You're
Yeah.
doing it.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
doing it.
Thank you for that.
Of course. Oh my goodness. Okay. I am happy to stay on that topic, or I am happy to focus on your beautiful book and what that process was for. I know that you had, it's almost a revised edition in that
That's
you
right.
wrote the book and then needed to rewrite the book.
Yeah.
So, what changed? What changed in the book? What changed in you in that
Mm,
process?
such a good question. So COVID
Mm.
happened. So my second book, my first book is titled Fit Matters, How to Love Your Job. I wrote it with my co-author, Cami Dunaway, and it really was written for job seekers to help people figure out like where's the place they can bring out my best, which is not that easy, when you're
Right.
looking for a job. Cami just retired from a beautiful career. Her most recent job was at Duolingo. She remains a friend. She's got her own coaching practice. We had so much fun writing that book, and yet it revealed this body of research, which was around what are the conditions in which people thrive. So I wrote on
Mm.
my own Brave Space Workplace, Making Your Company Fit for Human Life, came out in 2019, right before COVID. Very difficult time to launch a book. And also my publisher went out of business in COVID.
Also difficult to launch a book.
Also difficult to launch a book. And in addition, my consulting and coaching practice dried up. I mean, like
Sure.
so many, I watched events come off the calendar, and my staff and I were like, done, done, done. Like, what does this mean? So we spent, as many did, quite a lot of the time of COVID lockdown figuring out how we would reinvent momentum, the company, in the context of the new world. Well, sure enough, over time, a host of beautiful research began to emerge around the world of work, and it brought up in me this feeling that I felt like a canary in the coal mine. Do you remember, what the canaries used to do, right? So they were taken into the coal mines, mostly like in the United Kingdom and Scotland and Ireland, but also in the US, in the Southeast. They were brought into coal mines to be harbingers of bad air, because
Yeah.
when they started to die, they would know the air was getting bad and they could take the humans out. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was out there singing, the air is bad here at work. Like, we have issues at work. We can do better. And I felt largely alone. There were other
Mm.
people saying it, but they were either more famous or less famous. But I just didn't necessarily feel like I was feeling heard. And then COVID hit. And then we started seeing some very, very solid research, including the research that came out in 2022 from our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who issued a report called the Surgeon General's Report on Workplace Mental Health and Wellbeing.
Mm.
And that research identifies 5 conditions that we need for work. Our model had 7, but they dovetail 100%.
Wow.
So between that work, the sloan management review work on the Great Resignation, some of the work that came out of Deloitte, I was like, okay, this research needs to be in my book because it's underlining and uplifting exactly what we're saying. I also wanted to simplify the book. I wanted to make it a little bit more of an instruction manual for people, leaders, to say, like, how can you create these conditions? Because it's not rocket science. And of course, I never meant for the book to take employees off the hook, because we all have a role in our own thriving at work. It's not like you're entitled to have your employer take care of all your needs. It's not realistic. But at the same time, the employees that really are going to get and keep the talent they need, they're going to be paying attention to the conditions for human thriving, just like you would any resource that you're, required to do your business. So anyway, I decided to kind of reframe and rewrite really the book into the third book, which is When Work is Good, to be a bit more explicit and also to include this body of research. So that was why I reissued it. And I also reissued it on my own. I self-published When Work is Good, which was a different experience, and I don't think I would do it again.
Okay.
I really liked having a publisher. by my side. So if there ever is a fourth book, which there may be, I'm hoping to be able to secure a publisher because their expertise is really helpful. I mean, I did work with Ingram Spark and because they were my distributor, and so they were awesome in terms of distributing the book. But book publishing is such a strange, it's a really strange field. Anyway, that's where the book came from, and I'm proud of it. I'm so grateful for the research that has come out in recent years, and it's still coming, as we deal with hybrid work issues and how organizations are leveraging the discernment that employees are bringing to their work. People like you who are looking at their lives and saying, actually, I think I want something different than working for you. And that's happening in tremendous volume in every nation in the land. And so for employers to get and keep the talent they need to run their businesses, they have to really think differently around their human capital. So it's an exciting time.
That is exciting if they know about your book.
Right.
Right. So what are you finding? Are you seeing, as you are working with multiple different companies across varied industries, are you seeing some common threads, or is everything a one-off?
Such a great question. I would say that there's a couple trends I'm really noticing. One is that there's a big difference between what you can do in a publicly held company, so a stock held company, public company on the stock exchange, and a private company.
Okay.
There's a huge difference because a publicly held company, which are generally the bigger companies, they're under a remit right now that for me doesn't feel sustainable in the real world, which is profit month over month, quarter after quarter, forever and ever. That's not sustainable for any living system. Just like we can't suck all the water out of the earth and expect to still have water to drink. We can't pollute our air and still have air to breathe. So, my bias shows my company Momentum was a B Corp for nearly 10 years. We believe in a triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit. I am a for-profit company, but I think that in many cases, not in all, but in many cases, the pressure of stock holders and the stock market itself creates really untenable conditions for human beings and for the leaders in those systems, which doesn't mean I won't work for those companies. I have worked with them, and there's brave and true leaders in those systems too. But I would say our sweet spot is more working with companies that can be a bit more nimble because they're privately held, or nonprofit or government agency where they maybe have a little more room to make choices that are taking a longer view, because one of the longer views needs to be, what investments do I need to make to bring out the best in my people? You can't always do that and expect to have your income go up every month if you're making an investment. An investment can look like training and development. It can look like coaching and mentoring. It can look like apprenticeships. It can look like investing in leaders that are really good for people, making sure you have a solid culture with key anchors that define how you do things. That all takes a little time, and it's not necessarily revenue generating right away. It will generate revenue, and that's a trend we're definitely seeing. Some of the companies that are being the most successful are very connected to a healthy, conscious culture. They're aligned in what they say they deliver to their customers, because consumers care quite a bit about what their organizations are doing.
So are you finding that the companies that are more service oriented as their product respond better to the principles that you're bringing, because it is also in service, but in service, how they say how you treat your employees is how they treat your customers? Is it like on a broader scale, that kind of methodology?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say I don't know that I necessarily see that trend, because it seems to be more about how committed is leadership to the consistency of practicing what they preach.
And what does that look like? How can you tell if they are?
Well, it looks like people, first of all, having clearly defined values that are behaviorally descriptive, and then being able to behave in a way throughout the system that's consistent with those values. And there's lots of bad examples, right?
Yeah, give me a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the good one right now is Boeing
Okay.
Corporation, which is a publicly held company, so it doesn't necessarily fit the agility rule that I'm talking about. But Boeing, has been a behemoth in the industry. They have created incredible planes that have transported us over the world. And in the last 10 years, they've had a series of big losses, plane crashes, lawsuits. And the FAA did a very robust investigation on some of the deaths that happened more than 2 years ago. And they found hundreds of problems with their
Mm.
internal processes. And when you unpack and look at a lot of those problems, many, if not most of them, are related to cultural norms.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, people on the line who noticed that there was maybe a problem with a manufacturing step, but felt too afraid to say anything to their boss because their boss was perceived as either not interested, or in many cases for Boeing, a lot of the reports are that the boss was under such high pressure for a timeline that they felt that to do anything to say this is a problem would get them fired or get them, recriminated against. And so people chose to be silent,
Wow.
resulting in ultimately disaster. And that's not uncommon, where we see people, when we have a culture that isn't brave and people don't feel like they can stand up to problems in the process, then mistakes happen, defects happen, and the consequences, for example, in a case like Boeing, can be really, really dire. So I think we often have like more bad examples than we do more, good examples. But I see good examples all the time in businesses. I also see good examples, though, of leaders who are creating healthy cultures, even in very untenable circumstances. And I think
Mm.
two of the sectors that are the most under fire right now are healthcare and education. Both so severely impacted by COVID-19, with healthcare expenses just rising so high, and education, having kids come back to school after such long periods out, having their own mental health and learning issues, and not necessarily getting the funding they needed. So, educators and healthcare administrators and administrators in education are really under tremendous stress to
Right.
attract and keep the talent they need. People are leaving medicine, people are leaving teaching. So, how do you run a school if you can't hire teachers? How do you run a hospital if you don't have enough nurses or physicians? So, I see a lot of examples of brave and true leaders who are leading really, really well, but they're thwarted by other consequences or impacts in their systems that make it really, really hard, which scares me, because then those leaders burn out, they can't take it, they leave the field, and then who's left to care for us, to teach us?
That is scary. We can't end there. Please answer that
We cannot
question.
end there. No, we cannot end there. We cannot depend on the heroism of
Right.
individual people joining those fields just because they're heroic. We sometimes
Right.
talk about our approach to leadership development is a no heroes journey, right? You shouldn't have to be heroic to lead well. And so there's, that gets into bigger social issues. But I'm very grateful for leaders who make choices to lead well, even when they're facing really difficult circumstances.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I have to read your book now because I need to know how that ends, where we don't have empty schools and empty hospitals. Like, not just from customers, but actually the whole building.
Well, yeah, and a lot of it is, and I know you see this, Wendy, even in, and I'm sure in your work and running your business, it all starts with what we call the connection advantage. It all starts with connection.
Yep.
We go to work largely because we feel connected there, either connected to what the organization does, the purpose or the contribution, or to the actual other humans that
Right.
work there. So, in a very simple way, we want to be looking at what behaviors,
Yeah.
what daily practices create the kinds of connections that are authentic and real, that draw people to choose to come to work for you or for me or for anybody else. That's the most basic,
Right.
currency I think that we have.
Oh, it's a beautiful currency.
It
Connection is my
is.
favorite. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I could obviously talk to you all day. I have 1,000 questions. I wish we were on a flight to Paris because I need that much
That
time. I
sounds
mean,
lovely.
I always wish we were on a flight to Paris. I feel like I keep saying, I mean, obviously I keep saying that because I'm always going to be on a flight to Paris, but I keep saying that in my conversations, I feel like perhaps I need to record a podcast on a flight to Paris
Oh
and
my
like
gosh.
just see if it's as amazing as I think it would be.
Yes, you do.
Right?
Totally.
Right? So
Yes,
fun.
yes.
Okay. We'll see, friends. Keep
I
keep
love it.
listening and we'll let you know when that's coming out. But oh my goodness. Okay, Mo, you're amazing. I'm so excited to be connected with you and so thrilled about this important, impactful work that you are qualified and equipped and empowered to do. So thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Please tell everyone where they can find and follow you, how they can get their hands on the book, all the good things.
Awesome. It's been so fun to talk to you, and I really needed this conversation, Wendy. It's been really helpful for me on this particular day. So I do believe like sometimes these things happen. So thank you for your great questions and your thoughtful reflections and your presence, because it really makes a difference in the world, made a difference to me today. So thank
Oh,
you for that.
thank you. I love a love fest. It's so
I
fun.
know, I know. Well, and yeah, and it's just so neat that we have this connection to New England, like that I grew up right down the
Yes.
road from your beautiful bed and
Right.
breakfast. So, okay, people can go to my website, which is momentum.com, and it's that funny spelling because my name is spelled M-O-E, so it's Moementum. And then on the site, you can access a bunch of resources, one of which is our free people and culture pulse check, which is a way to get a quick sense of how is your organization or team doing. And then we publish a newsletter that comes out twice a week called Work Matters. And that's one of the best ways to stay connected to the work we're doing. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram. I love, love, love it when people find me there and say, hey, come do this thing. We're going to be hosting, I'm saying yes to something else that's been in my heart, which I know you will love, which is that I'm going to be doing a retreat for women over 50 called the Back
Yay.
Half in Scotland in the fall of 2025.
Fun.
And so more news will be coming out of that because this is such an interesting phase of life, for me. And I think for many women around, all right, now I'm kind of over the hump, but I'm not done. So
Right.
what happens next? So
Right.
stay
Oh
tuned.
my
The newsletter will have all
gosh.
of that.
It's so fun to be us.
Right. It is. It
It's
is fun to
really
be.
good. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I
Well,
cannot
thank
wait to
you.
continue our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.